So this is our normal agenda. So I'm calling the meeting to order. We had the Pledge of Allegiance. I know from the log-ons that we have a quorum. And we normally have what we call consent items. So we are going to take a vote on those consent items shortly, and you can see the remainder of the agenda. As soon as we finish the beginning business part of our meeting, we will put Mike Levin on, because I know that's what we're all here for. So this is the business. I've announced the quorum. We have 3 things on our consent items. The agenda, we have to meeting minutes from February 5th, February 2020, because we had no meeting in March. And we also have a motion to adjourn at the end of the meeting, end of the committee report, so we don't have to hold a second vote. Okay, now, if we make this work right, we're going to take a vote on the adoption of the consent calendar items using a poll. So please vote on the items on the screen. Of course, those of you on YouTube can't vote, but everybody else, please click on either in favor or oppose. And of course, I can't click on it.
Everyone is voting right now, or
okay.
All of the attendees are voting right now.
Yeah.
Great. Everybody but me gets to vote. Okay. I'm all for that. Okay. So please let me know when we have a fair number of people who have voted and what the outcome is.
Yep. We've had 83% of the people vote, and of those 83%, 90% have voted in favor.
Yes, we can move along. Thank you very much, Canyon Dems. We got it done. Okay, so we've held Zoom meetings for the executive board, and we did a presentation by Katie Porter and a Zoom presentation on the census. We're really sorry if you tried to log on to the Katie Porter event, but we didn't know in advance how many people would sign up, and we didn't have enough capacity. And we're trying to take care of that with our experiment today using the YouTube broadcasting. Also, the field team has done multiple training sessions on how to digitally organize voter contacts. Some of our members have been helping with the effort in South Orange County to make masks. Others have volunteered on text banks and phone banks for candidates. And there have been multiple e-newsletters to keep members up to date on the Zoom meetings. One of the most important things that's been going on that you may not know about is the development of community focus groups. These are small informal groups that are developing in Lake Forest, Rancho Santa Margarita, and Mission Viejo. And we hope to have them start also in Laguna Hills. And it's a way for people who live in those cities to decide what's important in that city and then interface with local governments like city councils and school boards in their communities. So if you're interested in that effort, please let me know. And I will pass along to the folks that are working on that now. Andrea Alexander, who is our wonderful secretary, is working on the Lake Forest one. Janet Henry is working on the Rancho Santa Margarita one. And Kathy Palmer is in the very early stages with the Mission Viejo one. And of course, we'd like to get one going in Laguna Hills as well. And now I'm going to call on our program chair, who's fabulous, Annie Krinsky, to introduce Mike Levin.
I wanted to just let you know about the May and June meetings first. Our May 19th meeting is going to be from the Citizens Climate Lobby. And for those of you who haven't heard about that group, they're an environmental group. They work with, they support and train volunteers to work with their local elected officials to influence climate policy. In June, we're going to hear from Dr. Bill Honigman. He's a physician. He's going to talk about healthcare and what it's like in the medical community during the COVID situation. For the next few months, we're going to be offering a a webinar that's not part of the general meeting. It's going to be like in the first week of the month, and it'll be on topics of, extreme interest for our members. And the first one will be on May 7th, and it will be how to get people elected to local offices, like school board, water board, city council. So that's on May 7th. There'll be more information posted on. Now, Mike Levin. We're so fortunate to have Mike with us tonight. He'll give us an update, of course, about the developments that are going on, and we'll have a chance to ask our members that have submitted questions. Thank you for coming back, Mike. We appreciate this opportunity to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you, and I'm very grateful to everybody at the Canyon Dems for having me this afternoon, and Louise and Annie and Vivian, thank you for making this video conference possible, and just great to see so many familiar faces. I wish we were all together in person. That will come soon enough, but this will have to do for right now. And the timing of our coming together is actually very opportune because just about an hour ago, we finalized a deal for the next tranche of emergency funding to deal with COVID-19. And what I thought I would do just briefly is talk about some of the federal response to date. A lot of it you're probably familiar with, but I think it's important since you really are my ambassadors in the community, and also the ambassadors for Katie and for that matter, Harley and Gil. We all need for you to communicate what it is that we in the House have been doing, led by our great speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democratic caucus, to ensure that the legislation that we move forward is actually trying to help workers and their families, as opposed to just a handful of large businesses and CEOs. And I'm very proud that we've been moving forward in that direction and really pushing the dialogue in a positive and productive way, today being no exception. When this all started, seems like it was an eternity ago, but it really wasn't all that long ago. Back at the beginning to mid-February, the Trump administration initially said they needed no additional funding from the federal government for COVID-19. They then acknowledged with some hesitation that they needed $2.5 billion, of which $1.25 billion was new money, and another $1.25 billion was taken from other pandemic response like Ebola and things like that. And that's billion with a B, which is a lot of money, but as you know, is nothing compared to what we would need soon thereafter. We in Congress realized that wasn't enough, even back then, with what we were hearing from Dr. Fauci and others. And Dr. Fauci has remained remarkably consistent through all of this, including the initial briefings that we received in the House of Representatives. So we upped the number to $8.3 billion in initial response, and that was mostly focused on the development of a vaccine. And it soon became very clear that that wasn't nearly enough. So we came back and voted for what was called the Families First bill that provided about $200 billion, including for things like extended sick leave, emergency sick leave, as well as money for free testing and expanded nutrition assistance. I can tell you that Republicans were very reluctant to move forward with much of that proposal, but we got it done. And then very shortly thereafter realized that too would not be enough, not even close to being enough. So we came back together and largely in the Senate, the third package called the CARES Act was negotiated. We got a lot of improvements to that bill. It really started out, you may have heard the speaker discuss this, it started out very much as a corporations first trickle down type of bill. We were able to really turn it upside down into more of a bubble up, workers first, families first bill. It had a lot of positive things in there, $100 billion for hospitals, $150 billion for state and local government, $20 billion for the strategic stockpile for things like respirators and ventilators and personal protective equipment, $20 billion for the VA and VA health facilities, as well as a huge amount of money for direct cash payments, $1,200 to those making $75,000 a year or less, plus $500 for dependents A lot of that money has been distributed. Around 80 million people have already received that direct deposit. If you do not have direct deposit with the IRS, it's recommended that you do so. There are scammers out there who are saying that, just pay them 10% and they'll get you the money. That's a complete scam. All you need to do is just go to the IRS's portal and sign up. If you want a paper check, it's going to take a longer period of time than if you do direct deposit. And you also will get Donald J. Trump and his signature in the memo line, which, if you ask me, that's less of an issue than the fact that the checks are going to be delayed because of the president wanting his name on the memo line. In addition to that, there's expanded unemployment insurance. Very pleased about that. An extra $600 a week, which means that before the maximum California unemployment insurance would provide was $1,800 a month. This increases that pretty substantially to $4,200 a month. And it also expands eligibility to 1099 independent contractors, as well as gig economy workers. And from our discussions with the California Secretary of Labor, those payments, many of them have already gone out, but for the gig workers and those newly eligible for the program, those payments are expected to go out sometime next week. Then lastly, the small business lending through what's called the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP program, actually administered by roughly 3,500 lenders that do business with the SBA already. That was a massively popular program, and it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There weren't guardrails against the money going to the businesses that needed it the most, specifically the real mom and pop businesses. But nonetheless, it was an important program, and it was subscribed to so quickly. The money ran out so quickly that we knew we had to do something to provide it another tranche of funds. So those are the three bills. What we did today, what the Senate passed, and what I'll be flying to Washington tomorrow in order to pass in the House, is really Bill 3.5. And this is the bill. I actually read it before this call. The final version. It's not very big, as you can see, just a lot of money. The third bill was 880 pages. This one's only 25 pages, because in scope, all it really does is expand some of the provisions in the third bill. And we flipped this bill as well. It was, in my opinion, very insufficient. What Mitch McConnell originally came to us with, left behind hospitals, left behind the health workers, did nothing really to help those most vulnerable or those small businesses that needed money the most. And here's what it does in a nutshell. And this is hot off the presses. An extra $310 billion for the SBA, Small Business Administration, Paycheck Protection Program. Importantly, $30 billion set aside for community-based lenders, small banks, and credit unions, so that actual mom and pop businesses can get some of the money. And then another $30 billion for mid-sized banks and credit unions. What was happening are the big banks were just taking the money, and in many cases they were not distributing it the way that we would have liked. There's also another $50 billion for SBA emergency disaster lending, $10 billion for emergency disaster grants, as well as $75 billion more in money for hospitals. And that includes additional money for PPE, personal protective equipment. And then another $25 billion for testing. And what was so critically important about this is that it forces the administration to develop a national strategic testing policy, something that they did not want to do, and specifically the Trump administration was opposed to. And what it says is, and I'm actually very impressed that we got this in the bill, and I'll read it to you. The secretary, meaning Health and Human Services, no later than 30 days after the date of enactment, in coordination with other departments, et cetera, shall create a COVID-19 strategic testing plan. Such plan shall assist states, localities, et cetera, in understanding COVID-19 testing for both active infection and prior exposure. So we're talking about both the antibody testing and the standard testing. This is so important because if you listen to Andrew Cuomo, what he will say and what he has said is that testing is everything here. and that the federal government has to take the lead, particularly with regard to the management of international supply chains necessary to provide testing on a wider scale. We're currently doing around 150,000 tests a day. We need to do more like 4 or 5 times that, somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000 tests a day. And then we need to hire between 100,000 and 300,000 contact tracers to better isolate where the virus is. We need to isolate the virus. We need to have treatment. And eventually we need to have a vaccine as well. So high level, very pleased with what happened here today. I think it's much better than what we were originally offered by McConnell, which was basically a straight take it or leave it, $250 for the small businesses with no guardrails. And it's not perfect. And I think the biggest weakness is really a couple. One is no additional funding for state and local government. We need additional funding for state and local government. As Cuomo said the other day, don't pass the buck, meaning to Trump, don't pass the buck unless you pass the bucks. So I agree with that. And then number 2, also critically important, the direct financial assistance to workers and to their families, to individuals, I believe needs to continue until the economy turns back around. So we should have tied it, whether it be to the unemployment rate, to the gross domestic product, or something. Not just a one-time payment, it's not enough. Now, what do I worry about? Long-term. Long-term, we're going to have a 4th bill and probably a 5th bill. The 4th bill, that is what we're going to call CARES 2. The last big bill was CARES 1. The 4th bill will be CARES 2. The one we just did today, I call Bill 3.5, because it really was just an extension of what we did before. The 4th bill, sometime later this summer, my priorities include the U.S. Postal Service, making sure that it's solvent, making sure that I'm in charge of a subcommittee for veterans employment. 113,000 veterans work at the U.S. Postal Service. Beyond that, it's an absolutely essential agency, and we've got to make sure that it's on solid financial footing. Number 2, I want to see hazard pay for our frontline workers. They deserve it. We've got to do right by them. Number 3, we need a huge jobs program. We've got to hire a boatload of people. You've probably seen we've lost 22 million jobs in the last month. That is the same number of jobs it took over a decade to create. So how do we create a jobs program? I want to see infrastructure. I want to see broadband. There's 21 million plus Americans don't have access to broadband. How are you supposed to do telehealth or distance learning if you don't have broadband access? We can put a lot of people to work with improving broadband across the country. Better water infrastructure, better transportation infrastructure, and a modern electric grid. All of that makes sense economically. It makes sense particularly now to put people back to work. We need a lot more money for education. The CARES Act, the 3rd bill, included $31 billion for education. Some of that money has already gone to colleges and higher ed, not enough. And not enough has gone to our K through 12 schools, not even close. I'd like to see several times more than what was in the CARES Act for education. And we need more for election assistance, and specifically we need national vote by mail. So critically important. What happened in Wisconsin was a disgrace. Seeing people have to choose between voting and staying healthy. Give me a break. This is America, for crying out loud. So we're going to fight for that tooth and nail. Down the road, we've got to, I think, have another effort around reform and around making sure that we are better prepared for the next pandemic. What does that mean? Well, straight up pandemic readiness, reinstating a lot of the things that were in place when President Obama put them in place, basically building that infrastructure back up. But then we have to take a real look at the holes in our social safety net in the United States. And specifically, actually, before I get off the topic of testing, we know that nations with the earliest and widespread testing fared the best. And if you look, I wasn't planning on doing this, but if you look at this slide here, see that orange there? That's the United States. Here's all the other industrialized countries, and there's us. That's the number of COVID tests per million population, near dead last. And you wonder why we've got 1/3 of the cases and 1/5 of the deaths in the United States. That's a big reason. So our safety net, why are we so vulnerable? 53%, this is before COVID-19, by the way, 53% of US households had no emergency savings at all before COVID-19. Almost 34 million workers lacked paid sick leave. 28 million non-elderly lacked health insurance. I mentioned 21.3 million lacked broadband, 500,000 plus homeless in the United States. So we have to figure out what we're going to do to improve our safety net. And at the same time, we've also got to be mindful, this will be my last slide, the deficits and the debt I am concerned with. Right now, what we're projecting, see the yellow there? That is what we think our deficit to gross domestic product ratio will be this year. As you see, it's off the charts, right? 13%. And that means now as a percentage of our overall budget, the amount we spend on servicing the debt is going through the roof. Our national debt will wind up being $29 trillion when this is done by most estimates I've seen. This president campaigned on the premise that he would eliminate the national debt in 8 years. Look it up. Candidate Trump said, I will eliminate the national debt in 8 years. Instead, during a time of economic growth, what did he do? We increased the debt by $3 trillion before COVID. And now because of COVID, we're going to have to increase the debt trillions more. So we've got to get smart about that too. We've got to have a hard look at taxes and revenues in the United States of America. And we've got to do it within the framework. I would like to invest in things that yield positive economic return. And that really helps, things that really help workers and their families. The rising tide lifting all boats, not just those at the top. We've got to have a new approach in the United States. So it's so critically important to have elected a Democrat as our next president before COVID-19. All of that is even more important now. When you think about and I'll close with this, Louise and team, when you think about what this president has done with his delays, his denials, the fact that he's now blaming everybody else, he's blaming China, he's blaming governors, he's blaming the media, he's blaming Obama, he's blaming impeachment, he's blaming the World Health Organization, he's blaming Nancy Pelosi. At the end of the day, it's on him. It's on him. The delays and the denials are so clear to anybody that takes the time to pay attention. We suffered the most cases, the most costs, and unfortunately the most deaths due to this president's failed leadership. And we've got to make that case again and again and again. We've also got to make the case that Joe Biden is going to make us safer. He's going to clean up the economic mess that Trump has left. And he's going to clean up the White House in general, the corruption, the dishonesty. It's got to come to an end. And we've got to bring our country back together again. We've got to remember that we're all one American people. And the division that this president has fomented to play to his political base, to gin up fear and resentment, we're better than this. I firmly believe it, and we're going to prove it in November. So with that, our campaign continues, by the way. We're calling and reaching out to our seniors in our community just with wellness checks, just to see how folks are doing. And in addition to that, what's happening on May 12th is a special election for the 25th district, which is up in North Los Angeles County, and we're helping Christy Smith. And you might know something about that race. It's really important that we keep that seat. It was Katie Hill's seat. There's a special election, and it's going to be Christy, who's a great candidate, state assembly member, running against the Republican Mike Garcia. It's mandated by Governor Newsom as a all-male vote by mail. So we've got to turn out. And if you want to help, I hope you can. And then on into November. And we did great in March. I'm so grateful for everybody in Canyon Dems who helped us out, who made calls, who really did everything possible to turn the vote out. We had a great outcome. We wound up with a slightly higher percentage of victory than we got against Diane Harkey in 2018. And I want to go even higher still in November. So we're going to be relentless. We're going to leave no stone unturned, as we always do. And, you know, campaigning is a little odd right now, but hopefully by the time the November election rolls around, we will have avoided a second wave of infection. We'll be able to go back and do the campaigning that we all know and love. So I thank you, Canyon Democrats, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And if
Okay.
you're interested in volunteering, Hunter is here somewhere. I don't see her in my Zoom window here.
She's
But-
here.
I'm
Great.
here.
Okay. So we do have some questions, but let me assure you and the people on at the meeting that every time you put an event or information on Mobilize, it shows up on our website. So our members can just go
Great.
there and find it. So we're hooked in with all the information your campaign's posting on Mobilize, Mike.
Oh,
Okay.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And also let me put in a plug for small dollar donations are one of the things that really helps candidates, because then people see that there's a strong base of support in the community, and that helps Mike raise money somewhere else. So I know some families are having financial problems, but if you're not and you can make small dollar donations regularly, I know that really helps. So
It really
our
does.
questions.
And we have stopped all fundraising activity, and we'll dip our toe back in the water sometime in
Yeah.
May, and we'll play it by ear. We still have
Yeah.
to raise money. Obviously, we've got
Yeah.
a competitive race and a team of great campaign staff, and
Right. And that goes for all our local candidates need those small dollar donations.
Yep.
Okay, so the first question comes from Annie Krinsky. What can we do to help ensure the legitimacy of the 2020 election?
have nationwide vote by mail, for one.
Yes.
Number two, more money for secretaries of state for election security. We had 400 million in the CARES Act. We wanted 2 billion. Republicans wanted 0. I think there's good news, which is that the 5 or 6 states that are really going to determine the outcome of the presidential election have reasonably decent rules with regard to vote by mail. So, they're not the states where the voter suppression is quite as pronounced.
Okay, great. Kathy Udovich asked a rather long question, but let me read it. I'm very concerned with the future existence of the post office laid out in the Constitution, and hope that Congress is going to go to the mat to get it properly funded. While people right now are rightly worried about privatize the postal service, that it would put mail-in ballots in jeopardy, the Postal Service is still absolutely essential for the functioning economy. Mail bills are taken as proof of residence when applying for loans, getting your real driver's license ID, passport applications, jury duty challenges, when there is possible fraud, among the plethora of other things that we depend on getting in the mail. Is it where Social Security, Medicare, and IRS payments and documents are received? So Kathy's making the case for the post office.
Well, she's totally right. And, we, I think, are absolutely committed on the Democratic side to doing all we can to get it on solid financial footing. They project they're going to lose 13 billion this year alone as a result of COVID, and another over 50 billion longer term. And that's on top of, what losses were already accumulating, because Republicans put the USPS in a financial straitjacket with regard to their long-term retirement obligations. They imposed not penalties, but they imposed a framework on the USPS to try to starve it, basically to try to eventually kill it and then privatize mail delivery in the United States. My predecessor, Darrell Issa, was open about this. And it's just absurd. I mean, there are over 630,000 postal workers, as I mentioned, well over 100,000 vets, and the essential services are obvious. And so we've got to do all we can to step in and to fight to save the Postal Service, and that's what I'm going to do.
For you. There are 2 questions related to know for. The first one is kind of tongue in cheek. It says, if there's a major climate event that impacts San Onofre, will Donald Trump say no one could have predicted that, from Barbara Casillo? And then a second question was, what is the status of Southern California citizens' continued removal of the nuclear waste at San Onofre during COVID-19?
Well, the first question, I think we all know the answer to that. But so obviously San Onofre has been squarely on my mind and a top priority, moving the waste as quickly and as safely as possible, long before serving in Congress, and continues to be a top priority to me now and will be for some time. We created a task force soon after I was elected. It's chaired by the former head of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission under President Obama, and the other co-chair is a retired Navy admiral. And the idea was, what do we do not only at San Onofre, but you have to understand the waste at San Onofre is a symptom of a bigger problem, which is that we don't have anywhere to send nuclear waste throughout the United States. So the task force tried to take on what to do about spent nuclear fuel generally. We worked for about a year on what is a really excellent report, which is now done. We finished it in late February, early March. We even printed it and bound it. Looks great. And we were going to have a press conference, I think on March 17th or March 24th, something like that. And then COVID hit. We're still going to release that report. It's going to be probably in June. We're sort of playing this by ear in the sense that, the nation is focused and we are all focused on coronavirus. We don't think releasing the report makes good sense, but very soon thereafter, as soon as we see that the public is open to non-COVID discourse and we feel we have a window to release the report, we will. The report has a number of recommendations for the site and then for spent fuel generally. Now, with regard to what's been going on since COVID at the site, they continue spent fuel transfer. There was a story, before the story, we wrote a letter to the head of Edison International saying, explain your rationale, because this is not an essential activity. And what they're saying, what Edison's argument is that they're part of power generation, so therefore it's essential. But there's no power generation at San Onofre. It's one thing for them to say their utility workers are needed to keep the lights on or to keep hospitals functioning. I agree with that. But moving around spent nuclear fuel makes no sense. Moreover, all it would take is for one safety incident to require frontline emergency medical professionals to have to go to the site to respond to an emergency. And our frontline emergency medical professionals are already spread far too thin as it is with regard to COVID and all the related impacts on our community. So that's number one. Number two is that they released 7,000 gallons of sewage into the ocean, and we didn't really hear about it until the Union Tribune figured it out and reported on it. So we wrote them a letter asking for more information. They wrote us back with what was a very insufficient response. And now the ball is back in our court to figure out what to do next. But Edison is not acting on the level, so to speak. And their basic premise is they want to just move those existing spent fuel rods, fuel assemblies into the canisters as quickly as possible, because that's their corporate objective. So they're putting their corporate objective over public health and safety once again.
The last question, Mike, has to do with how you're responding to the virus. You used to have a lot of town hall meetings and coffees with people, were face-to-face, gathering input from the community. And Linda Eleanor asked, how are you gathering that kind of information on issues, and what's the best way to send that information to our representatives? since you
Well-
can't meet face to face?
The way that we're doing it right now, we've had, probably between the campaign and all of our official business that we've been doing, probably 100 of these different Zoom meetings with different people. And, different, obviously we use teleconferencing as well. And we've done, tomorrow will be our 9th virtual town hall
Wow.
since this started. And each one of them, we get thousands of people. And the one that we did this past Saturday was the most popular yet. I think we had between Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc., 15, 16,000 views. So I was happy about that. But we just keep at it.
Okay.
It isn't quite as, effective, but we really don't have a choice. I miss the coffees and the house parties a lot. Hunter, I think knows that I don't mind doing like 2 or 3 of them a day. Probably exhausting. Easier to set up a video conference than a house party. But we did, I think, 200. We were at 229 is what I remember for the campaign before all of this, and we wanted to get to 300 by November. So I don't know if that's going to happen. We could give it a try.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate your hard work. And boy, it must be scary getting on a plane to go to Washington, D.C.
Oh,
I
have
a
my
good mask.
Yeah, right here. Here you go. That's it.
Oh, that's great.
It's at the end of the day, I just try to remind myself it's nothing compared to the frontline medical workers every day. Having to get on an airplane, is really nothing. But it's more all the families out there that are truly struggling during this. I mean, I'm very fortunate. Our family's doing just fine. Our 7-year-old, our 6-year-old are adapting pretty well to distance learning, and helping my son and daughter with their homework every day is actually a joy for me, because as you all know, I'm not home as much as I'd like. So on the one hand, it's a little bit stir crazy, but on the other, I really do value the time that I have being home with them and home with Chrissy. So it's a mixed bag. But we'll get through this one day at a time. And I think really the key, let's just be good people to one another, and I think it's important not to forget just our basic kindness and generosity with one another. And I see an awful lot of that in the community. And look, there are people out protesting and demanding that they get back what they see as their, constitutional right, this, that, and the other. And I'm a very strong believer in free speech. So when I see the people out there protesting, on the one hand, while I may not agree with what they're saying, I agree with their right to do it, if they do it in a way where they're not hurting anybody. And so I spoke today with the OC sheriff and the San Diego sheriff about all of that. And we've got to remember the right to free speech. But by the same token, we've got to be responsible, and we've got to listen to public health experts. So I wish I had easy answers on this stuff. We are going to send more relief to people with the vote on Thursday morning, and just keep us in your thoughts as we move forward. And the other cool thing is that Congress hopefully will pass a proxy remote voting rule on Thursday as well.
I hope so too.
I know Katie would be really happy. Katie's been a great leader on that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mike. We really appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you. Take care.
Don't hang up, folks. We have more stuff to do in our meeting, okay? Hang in with us. Okay, so now Faye's going to talk for a few minutes about what the field team has been doing.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Can you hear me, Louise?
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Field team, as most of you know, most of our regular members know, our primary activities are centered around direct voter contact, meaning we talk to people. We have conversations with voters, either voter registration or more traditional door knocking and door-to-door contacts. So needless to say, with the stay-at-home order and the situation that we're in right now, our activities are on hold. We had to hit the pause button on our normal outreach activities. We're all anxious to get back to it, but we're being responsible about it and we're staying home. However, that being said, the field committee behind the scenes has been really active. We have an awesome group of folks on the back side of things that bring these volunteer activities to the members and come up with the programs that we use for our voter outreach. So we continue to meet as a committee every month via Zoom, and we're using this time right now to brainstorm and strategize our programs and come up with maybe even some plan B situations to move forward so that we're ready in November when things are a little more flexible, where we can actually maybe think about getting out and talking to voters. So we're working on things behind the scenes, and our field committee members have been real active with some of the other volunteer opportunities that are out there. On the screen, you can see Louise has put together kind of a list of some things that are still available that can be done remotely through some other organizations. Mobilize is a fabulous site for listing these activities. Rachel's done outstanding job of getting us linked into Mobilize right through our Canyon Dems volunteer website. There are peer-to-peer texting opportunities. I've done some. I know some of our other members have done some of those. There are organizations out there that are still able to do some postcard events. There are phone banks, and you can see on this list kind of what it looks like when you go to the website. This is some of the activities that are available in Lake Forest. It has regional filters, so you can really drill this down to your own zip code and our own area. As an example, you can see that the DPOC posts a lot of things out here. They need help with phone banking, to call people, to remind them to fill out their census forms. Everybody's got time to do that now. So it's a good time to remind people. Some of the other districts are doing wellness calls. Mike mentioned earlier the importance of the special election for Christy Smith in California 25. I saw it there earlier today. There are phone banking and texting opportunities for her campaign. So all you really need to do is just what we've always done in the past, and just go to canyondems.org/volunteer and scroll through the list. And if you click on where it says see details on a particular opportunity, that will take you in and give you a little more information on what's involved and take you to a sign-up page. You'll get an email confirmation and all the information you need to help out. So there's a lot of things that can still be done out there. We are working on our own Canyon Dems outreach for the general election, and we'll have more of that as we get a little bit closer to November. But in the meantime, this is super easy. I've done a lot of texting for folks. Other people have done texting and phone calls. So just take a look at it, and there's plenty of things you can do out there to continue to help. So with that, I'll hand it back to Louise.
Thank you, Faye. And next we're going to have Ann Owen talk to us about community outreach. Ann, are you there?
I am here. As you can see on the screen, that is the back of my car, as well as I had a trunk full of food. And the outreach program has been doing some really great things to help people in the community. And the first thing we did was help feed a variety of families, the Family Promise, homeless families that they house and try to find jobs. And so about a week ago, we had about 15 people total, made wonderful casseroles, homemade bread, homemade cookies, fresh fruits and vegetables. and brought gift cards for grocery stores that they all donated to Family Promise. And I dropped all these things off, and they were overwhelmed at our generosity to help all the families that are in need. And so this is just a little clip from on behalf of the 13 families we are supporting during this difficult time. We'd like to thank you for your generosity in donating meals and grocery gift cards this week. Our families were overjoyed to receive home-cooked meals and grocery funds, especially at a time when groceries are difficult to come by. And by the way, tomorrow, Family Promise is also having their yearly fundraiser. I know you're probably getting a million of these fundraiser requests in your emails, but I just wanted to tell you that they are having one tomorrow. The other thing, and some other cute little uplifting stories, I think. We've had some members cleaning during their confinement. And Jenny Golden called me the other day, and she had a printer and a bread maker and a waffle maker and a blender. And so I picked those all up and I dropped them off to Family Promise so they can deliver them to some of the families that they have recently found housing for. We had another fellow Democrat, Canyon Dem, call up the other day and want to know what food bank that we supported. And I told him it was Second Harvest. And this is really amazing. He donated his whole stimulus check to Second Harvest Food Bank because he felt they needed it more than he did. So that's certainly above and beyond and a very special donation indeed. And speaking of Second Harvest, last year, Second Harvest distributed over 26 million meals, 26 million. And they fed 250,000 hungry people every month. Obviously, those numbers are going up during this crisis. And the people that volunteer there, being like myself and our outreach group, senior citizens, are no longer comfortable volunteering presently since we're social distancing. And so if anybody would like to support them, whether it be through a grocery drop-off or through a financial donation, that is another wonderful organization that Canyon Dems likes to support. And if you go to outreach at canyondems.org, Andy Alexander and I would love to pick up your food or whatever, and we can drop it off for you at Second Harvest. So I think those are just some nice stories to be able to share during this time that we're all, sort of nervous and not knowing what to expect in the future. So Louise, I think we can go on to the next slide. Okay. And now I'm going to be the membership chairman. I probably have been bugging a few of you on the telephone over the last few weeks. It's giving me something to do. And we've had a very successful renewal by many of our members. So as you can see, we are now at 342 members, of which 320 are Democrats, 17 MPPs and 2 Republicans, and then another, a Green and a not registered. And I think we've had a couple this week since Heather Gilbert made this slide for us. So our numbers are continuing to rise. And if you're listening and you have not renewed, please go online and renew today, because our goal is to still get up there. My goal is to still reach 400 this year like we did last year. So we'll keep trying and keep calling. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ann, for all your work. It's really lovely because when I open my computer feed, my email feed, I see the contributions coming in on Act Blue, and it really makes me feel secure that we have a healthy organization when our membership continues to grow.
And all those sustaining donors that are continuing,
yes,
definitely big plus.
Yeah. Okay, so Janet Henry is going to talk about community choice energy. Janet, are you there?
I'm here. Hello,
Great.
everyone. It's nice to see everyone, even though I'm not really seeing you, right? I'm glad that you're here and glad that you signed in. So today, other than my candidate spiel, which I'll give a little thing at the end here, we're going to start working in our particular group with this community choice energy. And that's exactly what it is. It's relatively new, at least to many of us, even though there are some communities that have been doing this since about 2015. Now, the current model that we have in our communities is we move into a home, you have a business, and your electricity is through one particular company. Most of us get ours through the Edison company. That's it, no choice. And they set the rates, we pay them, the public utility approves their rates, there is some oversight. This new model, we still use the Edison company, but it's a little bit different, whereby the Edison company would be the infrastructure. And then it gives the community, as it says there, community, whether it's a single city, which is not very viable. You usually have to go out and join with other cities. And the individual group then gets to have a choice. And those are renewable choices, whether it be wind or solar. And they buy those separately, but they use the infrastructure of, let's say, the Edison company to deliver those to our homes. So that's a whole different kind of model of looking at this. And in our particular area, Irvine is heading this up. They're looking for people to join them because, like everything else, if you have a larger group, then you're going to be able to get better costs when you go out to buy your solar energy or to go out to buy your wind energy. Costa Mesa is joining with Irvine, Huntington Beach. And so we are trying to get our particular communities to also begin their own feasibility studies to see if this would be a good thing for them to join. Let's see what else. Because it is choice, we now have competition in the field. We have no competition when we go out with the Edison company to buy electricity through them. But if we're going out to other sources, we will now have competition. And I watched a webinar about Lancaster, which they've been doing it since 2015. When they started, they were paying 14 cents for a kilowatt. Currently, they are paying 4 to 6 cents a kilowatt. Now, that doesn't mean that that would be exactly what it would be like here, but that's just to give you an example. Irvine's feasibility study says that they will have some cost savings, and it takes about a year to get those cost savings going. So how we come into this is we are going to work with our individual cities. Andy and Ann are working with Lake Forest, and I don't know if we have anybody yet for Mission Viejo.
Kathy Palmer has started to try and figure it out.
Yes,
And it's just me in Lake Forest.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and then what the lead person does basically is get other people in the communities to start talking to the city councils. To some extent, they're probably all pretty aware of it, but to what extent they are educated themselves, and now then you have to make the next step and actually do something about it. And that's what we want to get going here. So in RSM, I am working on this, but actually our lead person is Jim Ward, and there's another gentleman, Roger, and then from our club, we have Nina and Chris, and Margot actually lives in Lake Forest, but she's kind of coordinating all of us. So that's kind of an overview of what it is. So I'll keep you posted on how it goes. And if you are interested in joining with one of these groups to put pressure on the city councils, please let us know, because we're organizing. We're good at that, right? To get working on those things. And so that kind of ends my report on community choice. And then I have one last comment that we are getting closer and closer to November. So if you are able to give me any names for people for local city council, local water board, any local school board members, please send me those names ASAP. I'm working with Pauline Hale. I'm going to talk with her tomorrow. I'll be checking with our local school board members and see which Dems are running and see where we can go with that. So thank you very much, and thank you for attending.
Thank you, Janet. And Janet's email address is up there. It's candidates@canyondems.org. So you can reach out to Janet.
Thank you.
And next, Marty Lubetkin is going to talk to us about sustaining donors. Marty, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear
Great.
me now?
Yep.
Okay. So major purpose is to help elect Democratic candidates. And we do that, as you've heard, through a variety of means, including our field team texting and calling and canvassing and also giving money, because candidates need money to run a campaign. Due to the virus, our usual methods for raising funds are limited at best. Actually, they're pretty much non-existent because we can't gather together and raise money. So the only way we have left at this point to continue to raise funds to help our candidates until we can be together again is through our Sustaining Donor Program, which was the brainchild of our own Walt Lawson. If you're able to give a few extra dollars, either a one-time as a monthly gift, you can go to our website and sign up through Act Blue to do that. Currently, we have 55 sustaining donors, and so far this year, they've given a total of $4,613 in this calendar year. I know these are times are tough and everybody's asking for money, but you have the wherewithal to give a couple of bucks. I'd like Louise says, even the small donations make a big difference because they add up. So if you're able to do that, I hope you'll please join us if you can.
Thank you, Marty. Really appreciate it. Okay, so Vivian, political action.
Hey everybody, hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome, hey everybody, thanks for being here. Here we are, you know what, sometimes this is what democracy looks like.
Right.
So I want to say, first of all, political action, usually what we're doing is we're out there on the streets, making our voices heard. We're going into candidates' office, we're going into elected officials' offices. We can't do that right now, obviously, but that's okay. We got some other things cooking. I want to say thanks to everybody who participated in the video get well message to Katie Porter. As you know, we had a little bit of a scare when she was sick. We didn't know if she had COVID or not, but a lot of the folks and a lot of Canyon Dems got together and sent in video get well messages. We put that all together in one video. She was very touched by it. So thank you all for doing that. The other thing we have is still the rapid response team. Instead of going out on the streets and making our voices heard, if there is legislation where we really need for our elected officials to hear our voices, sign up for the rapid response team, because you'll be notified and we'll get the word out and ask you to all at once use social media, bombard social media, and do a flood of phone calls into senators, congresspeople, anybody that we need to persuade with our voices. So you could sign up for the rapid response team on the website. There's that. And we got something for you to do tonight. So, you know, a lot of people, we voice our thanks for our healthcare workers. Very important, right? They're on the front lines. There's a lot of other folks out on the front lines too. And this comes from Jasmine Miles, who's with the DCCC. Her job is really solely to get Katie Porter elected. She had this fabulous idea and we're picking up on it and we're running with it. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna ask you all to take a selfie of yourself holding a sign to thank workers, not just the healthcare workers. Some of the other workers that don't get a lot of love, but they're out there on the front lines nevertheless. For example, I put a few together for you, and these don't have to be fancy signs. I think, about 10 of these I'm going to give you examples of, and they were quick and easy. I did these all in 5 minutes. You can make yours fancy. You can make yours simple like this, but the point is, do a sign of yourself thanking somebody that we don't normally in the mainstream media hear thanks for. Take your photograph of yourself holding your sign and then send it to action@canyondems.org, action@canyondems.org. And what we'll do is,
Vivian, will you
Yes.
show the signs again? Because I had this.
I haven't shown them yet.
Oh, all right. Well, go ahead.
action@canyondems.org, and we're going to compile all those into one nice slideshow video and blast those out to everybody in the universe. So here's some examples. How about respiratory? Thank you, respiratory therapists. You see that one? Thank you, respiratory therapists. How about thank you, ultrasound technicians? Can you see that? Am I blocking out? There we go.
Yeah, you got it.
They don't get a lot of love, but they're there every day, right? We need them. Hospital sanitation workers, right? What would we do without them? We got to show our love to hospital sanitation workers. How about, you know, that flights, like when Mike Levin gets on his flight and Katie gets on her flight, there's flight attendants going to work every day. Let's say have some love for flight attendants. How about, you know, we still need gas in our car and there's guys working at the gas stations. Thank you, gas station workers. Couple more. Oh my goodness. Thank you, grocery store workers, right? Those guys are getting sick all the time and they still show up to work. And how much do you think they make per hour? Not a lot. Let's show them some things. How about the buses are still running? Thank you, bus drivers. Thank you, the guys out in the construction field, still getting the potholes filled. Thank you, construction workers. Oh my goodness, we still see the brown UPS trucks. Thank you, UPS drivers. And last but not least, close to my heart, we heard it from Mike Levin. Thank you, postal workers. You visit us every day. You deliver the stuff that we're all ordering online. Thank you, postal workers. So if you guys, these are just a few examples of signs you can make. Take a selfie if you're in place by yourself and it's hard to take a selfie and hold a sign. Use that timer on your cell phone, set it up right, take it, send it to action@canyondems.org. Now, Jasmine Miles gave me a really good example. You know, when you go to a potluck, if everybody brought cookies, it wouldn't be much of a potluck, right? So come up with your own ideas, not just these ones. Come up with your own so not everybody is, you know, thinking just that same group of people. Do 3 or 4 so that we have different ones from everybody. We're going to put these together. You have till April the 30th, the end of this month. Do your sign, just a little quick sign to thank some group that doesn't get a lot of attention in mainstream media. We'll put them together. We'll make sure they hear your voices and your thanks. Guys, this is what democracy looks like sometimes. Thank you very much.
Okay, and remember, you're going to email them to action@canyondems.org, which you can see on the slide.
Do you want me to put on my new hat?
Sure.
Right, here we go. You'll see on the slide, we have something now called the Small Business Outreach Committee. The Small Business Outreach Committee was formed because, well, the Republicans, they always say that they're the party of business. That's true if you're Monsanto or Dow Chemical or Exxon. But what about the small businesses? The people who are sole breadwinners because they are running a small business. Now more than ever, we need to support small businesses. And did you know that right here in the Canyon Dems Club, we have members who are small business owners? Quite a few of them, as a matter of fact. I've made phone calls to some of them, and we're going to get this going. We're kind of getting the ball rolling. Here's how it's going to work. There's going to be a new tab on the Canyon Dems website, and you can click on that tab for small businesses, and you'll see a list of all the Canyon Dems members who are small business owners and the businesses that they operate. So for example, did you know we have a dog sitter? Somebody who runs a dog sitting company? You need a dog sitter during this quarantine or even after the quarantine, please use the services of your fellow Canyon Democrat who runs a dog sitting operation. The Ebells, shout out to Patty Ebell. Her and her husband have a locksmith company. They're the sole owners of that company. If you need a locksmith company, you can click on that tab on the Canyon Dems website and find out about them and how to get in touch with them should you need a locksmith. So that's the idea behind it. If you have, oh, one more, Kathy Budovich. My friend Kathy, do you know she runs her own travel agency? She is an independent travel agent. You think travel agents could use our support right about now? Yep. If you need to plan something ahead, you know, I plan my vacations in advance. Please contact Kathy. In any case, you get the point. There's going to be a place now on our website so that you can find out who the Canyon Dems members are, who are small business owners. Please, please support those businesses with your, you know, with your pocketbook. And we'll get this rolling. If you are a small business owner and you're hearing this right now and I haven't contacted you, get in touch. I don't know, do we have an email set up for this yet? You can do it at action.
Yeah.
Just do it at action because you'll get me. action@canyondems.org. And we'll make sure you do it. You get involved in this. One last thing. I'm your political action committee person. I'm hoping that somebody will step up and take over the chairmanship of the Small Business Outreach Committee so I can continue to focus on political action. So if you're a small business person, you're a Democrat, and you're part of the Canyon Dems Club, let me know. I'm happy to pass the baton to you so you can be the new chairperson for this brand new Small Business Outreach Committee. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Vivian. Okay, Ken asked me to do a quick review of the treasurer's report. We started out the month of March with over $28,000 in our bank account. We had deposits from memberships and sustaining donors, which added another $1,885. And then we had some routine expenses, which include prepayment on our holiday party reservation and also our charter application with the Democratic Party of Orange County. And we also had a large expenditure when we made $11,000 in contributions to candidates, which leaves us in the bank as March $19,564.70. But of course, as Ann pointed out, we are still receiving memberships, so that number has gone up.
Actually, Louise, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, Ken, please.
I think our balance at the end of March was actually $18,564.70.
Oh, I'm sorry, my typo.
And we are currently at $19,287.
Thanks,
so
Ken.
we're about 300 below that, but the contributions, I'm so happy that people have decided to give contributions through ActBlue rather than mailing them. It saves me going, dressing up in a mask and gloves and everything and going into the post office. Okay. So I do appreciate.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Ken does an outstanding job because we are both a federal and a state PAC. And there are quarterly reports and they are very fussy about the details. So Ken really does this work behind the scenes and we really appreciate it. We gave both Mike Levin and Katie Porter $2,500 each. And we gave Dave Min for State Senate $2,000 and Melissa Fox for Assembly and Scott Reinhardt for Assembly $2,000 each. So we still have money budgeted in this category to give contributions to local candidates for school board or water board or city council. And since we're not meeting at the Murray Center, we have a little bit of extra now because we're not paying the rent on the room. So we will be coming back with more recommendations from the board for contributions a little later on. So look forward to that. And if you have suggestions or recommendations, please let us know. And of course, we can give more money to these candidates we've already contributed to. So that's really important. You know, one of the things candidates have to spend a lot of time on is what they call call time, where they get on the phone and they cold call people to ask for contributions. It's really tough work. And so it's really important for us to step up when we can. Thank you. Okay, so one of the things we love about Canyon Dems is that time before our meetings when we get together and see our friends, see how they're doing, hear about what's going on in their lives, and the social time. And we're all missing that. So we are going to have an opportunity for all of us to get on another Zoom meeting at 6 o'clock. And it's just for fun. We're not going to do any club business. It's just social time. Nobody's going to say you can talk now or you can talk later. And so it's just a fun time to get together. The address is on the screen. It's canyondems.org/event/social hour. And you're more than welcome to join us there. I'm thrilled that I got to the end of this and managed to get it all up on the screen, and everybody got to hear from our committee members. And so with this one under our belt, I know that our May meeting will be even more interactive, and look forward to seeing you tonight. And stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you at 6 o'clock.